If you listen to Contract Assignment Domination and now realize that it's complete fraud to represent yourself as a buyer when you have no desire, intent, or ability to purchase a property, if there's any way that you can still legally market with the existing advertising that you've already paid for, like bandit signs, yellow letters and postcards that say I buy houses. This is a question I got after posting that episode, and we're going to cover exactly how you can legally do that utilizing the existing marketing materials you have right now.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
This is the Virtual Real Estate Investor Podcast with Vincent Polisi. Buckle your seatbelt and prepare to learn how to legally make six figures investing in real estate with no money, no credit check, and nothing but a computer and internet connection. Learn how you too can begin generating buyers and sellers for free today, and why you're only 2 calls away from making a $10,000 or more payday while never leaving the comfort of your home. And now, your host, the virtual real estate investor, Vincent Polisi.
All right, guys, here we go. So if you listened to the last episode, you now know that representing yourself as a buyer when you have no intention of buying and closing, when you have no ability financially or with credit to close, with the sole intention of assigning a contract is illegal. And because you're better than that and don't want to do anything that's illegal, the obvious question is, what do I do with all of this marketing and advertising that I have that says that I buy houses? And the answer to that question is very simple. The answer is use it. If you're actually going to take my advice and become a legitimate buyer. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, but Vincent, I don't have the cash or the credit to become a buyer. And to that, I would say, so what? It doesn't matter. Why doesn't it matter? It doesn't matter because you're only thinking linearly. You're only thinking of one way of doing business. And that way is the traditional, conventional model where you either pay all cash or you pay cash and get a mortgage. But guess what? There are many other ways to legally, legitimately buy a property. Want to know what they are?
Look out! Here comes another knowledge bomb.
Okay, to legally advertise yourself as a buyer, or what the law calls holding yourself out as a buyer, you actually have to be a buyer. So our job, if you don't have the cash or credit and you don't have the resources to close, is to make you into a legitimate, bona fide buyer. There are a few different ways that we can do that so that you can continue to utilize the marketing that you've already paid for and legally and non-fraudulently hold yourself out as a buyer. And so the simplest method is to use a standard real estate contract and the normal playbook of how things are done when you're buying and selling retail. What do retail buyers do? They put together purchase and sale agreements contingent upon their ability to obtain financing. Common practice, done every single day. You'd be an idiot not to do it if you have to get financing. What's being taught, unfortunately, is for you to go out there and represent yourself as a cash buyer when you are not, with the underlying theory that if you're holding yourself out as a cash buyer, you will be taken more seriously and have a greater shot of getting the property contracted and off the market. And of course, there's a certain amount of validity to that. Anybody would prefer to have an all-cash buyer versus somebody that has to get conventional financing. Of course, that makes sense. The problem is, in the case of many of you, it's complete fraud. So let's cover how to present and hold yourself out as an all-cash buyer, which many of you are doing even though you're not. Let's turn you into an all-cash buyer and do it legally so that you don't have to commit fraud and you don't have to put in these stupid weasel clauses where you have to commit additional fraud and lie about some third party that doesn't exist, that didn't approve the transaction. The simplest method to put yourself out as an all-cash buyer is to find either the all-cash buyer that will finance you based on certain criteria and simply enter into a joint venture agreement with them for the acquisition of properties matching that description, a legal joint venture documented, and get proof of funds from your joint venture partner. Another option is to get set up with a transactional lender. If you don't know what a transactional lenders are, these are lenders that will lend money on a transactional basis where the money that they lend goes to the real estate attorney or the title company. It never leaves their possession until the transaction has closed, and they are sending a wire directly back to the transactional lender in the amount of the loan plus any additional fees that lender is charging. And they will provide you with a proof of funds letter. Now, they have certain criteria that have to be met, and that criteria is that you're going to have a buyer already lined up for a double closing. And what you can do in your purchase contract with the seller is set things up so that it is contingent upon your ability to find and resell the property to another buyer. And once again, we have full disclosure up front as to exactly what's happening, what you're doing, and why. Now, if you're running your business correctly, you should have a database of your buyers already set up or your assignees already set up with the exact criteria that they're looking for so that you're only looking for properties that match their specific description. And that way, you already have a buyer lined up or an assignee lined up before you ever go into a purchase and sale agreement. Now, if you're not advertising that you buy all cash, you're just advertising I buy houses, here's yet another way that you can do it legally and with full disclosure so that everybody's on the same page and they know exactly what's going on with total transparency. You can simply enter into an owner finance deal, contract for deed, land contract, installment sales contract, you name it, with a seller leaseback for the term of the balloon required to close, with the added contingency of your ability to either obtain permanent financing, if you're going to do this as a buy and hold, or to find either a buyer that can close after you or an assignee that can close. In this case, either one will work because technically, legally, you would own the property, even though structured properly, there wouldn't be any deed conveyance on the contract for deed. You would still be classified as the owner with the ability to resell. So you could resell the property at that point to a buyer, or you could simply do an assignment and assign it to the assignee. Either one would work. And the beautiful thing is if you do it the way that I do it, you would go into the owner finance contract, no money down. So you have no capital at risk. You simply have good and valuable consideration that's been paid to have a legally binding contract, but you would not have to deal with these escrows and having money held at a title company and all these other gyrations that they have you going through. Now, I actually have to laugh here at this one because as I was mentioning, putting money with a title company that never shows up and all these other crazy fraudulent gyrations they have you guys go through on these things. My 2-year-old was screaming in the background, channeling my rage and frustration at what they have you guys doing. And I'm not going to edit it out because it was a sound effect that was absolutely perfect for what we were discussing.
Hey, what's up, investors? John Lee Dumas here, founder and host of Entrepreneur on Fire, awarded Best of iTunes 2013, and you're listening to the Virtual Real Estate Investor Podcast with my man, Vincent Polisi. Prepare to ignite.
So there you have it, guys. There are 3 or 4 more methods that you can use right now immediately in your business to convert from the fraudulent false advertising, holding yourself out as somebody that you're not, lying, quote unquote, wholesaler to being a professional real estate investor. Now, if you thought that was great and you want to learn more about how to become a legitimate bona fide buyer without having to be a liar, without having to commit fraud, and you want to know some other strategies that you can employ immediately to increase your income, decrease your turn times, decrease and eliminate your marketing expense, my advice would be to dive deeper with us in contract assignment domination systems, which you can reach and sign up for at virtualrealestateinvestor.org/CADS. Once again, virtualrealestateinvestor.org/CADS. One lucky person is going to get the opportunity for me to close both their buyer and their seller virtually over the phone utilizing these methods as they get to retain the assignment fee. It doesn't get any better than that. So head on over to virtualrealestateinvestor.org/CADS and sign up because we go live with the webinars and training next week.
You've You've been listening to the Virtual Real Estate Investor Podcast with Vincent Polisi. If you've enjoyed this podcast, be sure to connect with Vincent at virtualrealestateinvestor.org, Facebook at facebook.com/virtual real estate investor, or at Vincent's private Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/virtual real estate investor.